tribulations. My heart, my balls, my somebody stop living. Somebody come and get me. Little did I know that the Lord was riding with me. The dark, the light, my heart, the fight, the wrong, the right is gone.
Hey, what's going on out there? YouTube family, this is Sammy Leggett here representing Team JVS. This is just a small introduction. I'm about to interview the directors of the movie Synchronic. This is Justin Benson as well as Aaron Moorhead, and this is their press day. Hopefully you guys enjoy the interview. Go and check out Synchronic when it releases out in theaters and in drive-thru on October 23rd. VOD in January. All right, talk to you guys soon.
Hey, I'm Justin, and I'm Aaron, and we're gonna talk about Synchronic.
Justin and Aaron, what's going on, guys?
Oh man, we're shooting something right now, so there's that. That's pretty. Yeah, our movie comes out tomorrow. We leave set and then go to the premiere, and then go get COVID tested.
Well, I appreciate you guys' time, but let's go ahead and just talk about the amazing film that is Synchronic. So one of the things that I noticed off the bat from the film is the tone. The tone in and of itself, when you first kind of get the first shot of two individuals, a girl and a guy, kind of in a hotel, you don't really know what's going on, and they both ingest this pill, and then all of a sudden, like, they just went somewhere completely different in their minds and what our perception was. Then, of course, it transitions to Dennis as well as Steve. And from the moment that you're with Dennis and Steve and they're in the house and they're seeing the situation that happens, I don't want to spoil anything, there's this feeling of like emptiness and like evil and imminent death. There's kind of this feeling like there's a serial killer like setting people up with this specific kind of drug. And I love that tone. Like, I love the mystery aspect of trying to understand where things are actually going to go. And you guys set that up perfectly. But in terms of what made you come up with the concept of that kind of style for this film specifically?
Well, I mean, a big thing with the tone was that, you know, obviously this is not, it's not traditional horror, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be scary. So we're kind of set out straight out the gate that it feels like it takes place in our world. The most interesting parts of our world distilled into the most entertaining moments, and then going forward, that the audience just it feels like it's happening in their world, and the stakes feels like it's real people rather than being something really heightened. So that was like to get straight from the get-go, and to feel like, hey, a tone of scaring through a feeling, just a feeling of dread, like this feeling like constantly like something terrible is about to happen, and establishing that kind of scariness. There's obviously a lot of different ways to define scary, but that was the one we were going for there. And thank you for noticing it. And also, by the way, we're always going for that in our movies, and it's really tough because sometimes you want to, like, there's an amazing joke that happens on set, and then you have to cut it because it feels like
not scary.
The movie was like full of dread, Anchorman. Full of dread, Anchorman. And it's just like, gotta cut out the Anchorman and keep full of dread.
But just know there's a whole Anchorman Synchronic.
Well, you guys did it perfectly. And one of the biggest things about drugs specifically is their connection to people trying to make themselves feel better about their reality, whether it is like them dealing with mortal reality, such as like Steve's situation, or just the other people that are taking this drug. Like, but it can be the silent killer in and of itself. And I think you guys identified that very specifically with the way that the twist goes in, but I'll get into that in a second. So the big segue is the chemistry between Anthony Mackie and Jamie Dornan. They almost seem too perfect for this, because off their gate, as soon as you actually are kind of watching them and seeing them kind of talk around each other, there seems like a real history there. It seems like they've been best friends forever. Now, you guys were interviewed before because we've had this interview before, but I was curious, like, what was the process of getting them into these roles, and do you already have them in mind ahead of time?
Yeah, I mean, we've always wanted to work with those two people specifically, but we've never been in a position where we could write a movie for, a celebrity actor, basically. And so it would be very presumptuous for us to present them with this script and say, hey, suddenly we wrote this for you. They'd be like, who are you guys? But what, to speak to their chemistry, it's funny, we've heard that word a lot in our previous 3 films as well, especially Spring, which is a romance. The thing is because of their busy schedules, there's not much time for rehearsal or anything like that. They're still kind of getting to know each other on set. And so what you're reading as chemistry, yes, they do get along very well. They are definitely friends in real life. What you're really seeing is just great acting. They are really good actors. And they're not pretending, but they understand how to bring a lived-in character into a lived-in relationship. And that doesn't actually require very much coaching from us.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. Because I could tell that both characters had that connection, but distance as well. But then let's go into the twist. Without spoiling anything, most people, you guys have probably seen the trailer, but as soon as the person ingests it, it takes them to this imaginative, very detailed location, and they literally have an out-of-body situation. But it's more to that. There's a science fiction feel to it. But in terms of the transition, and there's a lot of great imagery. Like, I didn't say this the first time, but there's a scene with Anthony Mackie where he is like talking on with the ambulance, and all of a sudden, like it transitioned to him kind of at the hospital. And I love that transition. Like, imagery is very refined in this film. But specifically, as far as shooting in different locations, what was that undertaking like? Because I know some of the transitions were so amazing from as far as the VFX standpoint, but it had to be hard to go to these different locations as well. So I was curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to be said about those transitions. One thing is that we shot those transitions on iPhones in the preceding months before, where we trade off playing different characters in the movie and get the shot down and kind of show how it would be. And then Aaron would just very rough in some of the visual effects work so we could show everyone on set and we could show the visual effects company doing it. Mm-hmm. In terms of finding those locations that would transition to, like, for example, between the apartment and the swamp, that thing is, it was hard to find the swamp was hard to find because first off, it had to be like kind of deep, but not too deep, like ankle deep. And so you don't have to get like scuba divers, a boat, a whole bunch of other safety personnel. You wouldn't have to be swimming around everywhere against an actual alligator. The water had to be tested and safe, which a lot of places you wouldn't think that aren't necessarily polluted. They just get agricultural runoff, and then there's fecal matter in the water. Or just your footwork. I mean, if you're standing in it, there's almost always just muck beneath you. Is there how do you walk around? You know? Yeah. We were location scouting for that one day, and I saw some mosquitoes that looked like birds with knives on their noses. Yeah. Oh no! And they would collect on you'd look at your jeans, and they'd be like trying to get their little straw blade noses through your jeans, and there'd just be hundreds, thousands of them. Mm-hmm. So yes, all those different locations on a 22-day schedule were very, very rough. We probably had the most locations of any 22-day film that was shooting in New Orleans at the time. Our crew was swapping locations every day, and sometimes once a day, or sometimes within a shooting day, and it was very intense and exhausting. It shows. But also those transitions are an integral part of the movie. I mean, one of the initial ideas of making this movie was the idea you take the drug and then without cutting. I mean, we do it with cuts many times, mostly because of budget reasons. But a few times we don't. Without cutting, you look around and slowly, you are in a completely different place. That's part of the horror of the movie. So those transitions had to be gotten right. Yeah, no, you guys did it perfectly in that execution. So the last two questions I have were, you guys it feels like there's a richness to like a character like the chemist, and that brief conversation that he has with Steve, and
it seems like there's a history behind the actual drug Synchronic. That I was kind of like, even towards the very end, I was like, what are the practical applications behind this? Like, what if, there is a transitional change that happens? It feels like there's more story to be told. And I don't want to, push you guys or anything like that, but I would very much so love to see where this prequel situation would be or moving forward with the actual characters, because I love the world that you guys set up. And I was curious about how much time did you guys spend on, that background, that backstory behind the actual drug, and as well as the characters and connected to it.
The backstory of the chemists who created the drug Synchronic is probably the most elaborate backstory in this movie. Like we've spent days like developing a TV show that's not set up anywhere, just like talking about like what would a TV show look like, an episodic, several seasons of synthetic drug chemists, how that industry works. And probably one of the most trimmed down scenes in the movie was the scene where he talked to the chemist. And let's get into a little bit more about like what happened to his boss, and he died of smallpox, and that he got from one of his trips on Synchronic. And yeah, I think that there's like kind of an obsession with telling some sort of more in-depth story in that world, because there's something about like everything from how do you test how are they just testing these drugs on themselves before they go out to market with them, and like who do you hire to do like the graphic design for the packaging that looks absurd, and how do you get that package to stand out on a shelf that like everything looks like an energy drink.
Yeah, no. And then my final question is this, as far as the importance of the actual film, as far as the meat and potatoes, which is of course the relationship between Steve and Dennis and their relatability as brothers, basically, but their connection to grief and luck and change. That we're trying to tell behind the story, which there's a lot of great things in this. There's amazing science fiction, there's amazing imagery. There's a lot of when it comes to the tone, what's going on naturally. But as far as the message, it feels like there is a real message there that felt like a lot of sincerity and love behind it. So I was curious from you guys' perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that Justin and I talk about a lot is, what's the movie actually about? And a message is kind of the word for it, but we like, I guess we'd like to just pull back to the word theme, because a message is telling you something. Yeah. Whereas we feel like we're exploring an idea. And this idea that we explore, one of a few that Synchronic explores, besides the idea that romanticizing the past might actually be, a dangerous and foolhardy thing. But there's this idea that that focusing on the past takes attention away from the wonders of the present. And I'm not saying that everything's wonderful today. We haven't solved every problem. I'm sure everybody has their issues, and we're all entitled to them. But it doesn't help at all to think of, man, wasn't it awesome in the 1950s? Couldn't we all just go back to those, white picket fences and it wasn't actually. It really wasn't for most people. And if you can actually look at how you, if you can, it's kind of if you can look at the present as a gift, then you might actually get a lot more satisfaction than if you look at the past as something to achieve.
No, I think that's beautiful. That definitely identifies specifically with both characters in a lot of different ways, whether it's Steve's tragic past or Dennis's keep recounting to back what could have been. I think that was perfect identification for it. All right, so where can people find more information about Synchronic, and where can guys find you guys on social media?
On social media, I'm at Justin H. Benson.
And I'm at Aaron Moorhead. And Synchronic's coming out tomorrow, so we encourage you to see it in a drive-in. And it'll be on VOD. I don't think it's been announced, but probably very early next year.
Yeah, I'm excited for you guys all to check it out. Perfect, you guys. Thank you so much. I'm sorry you guys had to do this again.
No apology necessary.
I mean, I was excited to talk to you guys again about it, but I'll leave that for another day. So, thank you so much. All right, you guys, check out Synchronic at your local drive-thru or theater, and definitely watch out for it on VOD on 2021. This is our interview. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace, guys.